Oh boy, well, that's not a good way to start a project out, is it? For this project, I've been wanting to build a whiskey cabinet for quite some time. As I went out and looked for ideas, though, I just wasn't super impressed. Everything seems to be kind of the same. People build a case that holds the whiskey and maybe it has a nice door on it, I don't know. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to integrate light into my whiskey cabinet somehow, and I had this idea to take one of my shoji lamps and extend the design so that it becomes the cabinet somehow. So I extended the sides and I made the thicker pieces on the sides and extended those down into the legs. So it becomes quite a tall piece with the case actually in the middle. It definitely has a Krenov feel to it because it's got those long legs with a narrow gap between the front and the back. There's a few things that I have never done here, and one of them is those drawer pulls. I've never done something like that. I'll definitely have to play around, along with a few other areas that hopefully will work out okay, but we'll just have to see. So let's get started. So I have some big chunks of oak left over from some previous projects. These are 50 millimeters. These are pretty thick, pretty heavy to deal with. And the first thing I need to do is figure out where I'm going to cut and what I'm going to get out of it. So this was a bit complicated because there's quite a bit of cracks on the edges and I need to stay away from. So I ended up with an area that I can cut out for both the legs and for the case. The case is important because this is going to be a continuous grain. It'll wrap around. That means I need to get one long piece out of it with as few uh, issues as possible. So I started cutting things down to a more manageable size. These pieces are pretty big and pretty heavy to manage through the jointer. They're also wider than my jointer. So what I did is I let the wood hang out over the edge, and I'm using a technique that I saw recently in the most recent issue of Fine Woodworking, where you allow the jointer to leave some unjointed edge, and then you just use a hand plane to take that off. And actually it worked really fantastic. I'm super impressed. This is a pretty easy way to get an extra 20 to 30 millimeters of wood off of my small jointer. After the hand plane, I could then run it through the thickness planer. Trying to resaw these big boards turned out to be a bit of a challenge, as you can see, and as you saw in the beginning, my bandsaw blade broke. It broke right where the blade is welded together. That's not good. After getting another blade in there, I was able to continue. My little bandsaw is definitely not cut out for these big boards. It's pretty slow and not super flat when it comes off the other end. And I just kept putting screwdrivers into the back end of that to keep that kerf from closing up and actually stopping my bandsaw from working. These boards were pretty warped when I got them out of the resawing, which is expected, so I'm going to sticker them and let them sit for a couple of days. One way to deal with that warping is to cut the boards into smaller pieces. That definitely leaves you with a lot more material after the jointing and thickness planing process. So I cut that in half, remembering which side is which later because this is going to be a continuous grain case. And then I take it over to the jointer and then I can run it through the thickness planer. These boards have quite a few cracks in them and wormholes. I'm just going to use some 20-minute epoxy with some black tint. That works pretty well. It's really fast and it'll keep me moving on this project. I will then cut the boards to the right length, so I have 4 boards in the end, and then I set my table saw up with a sled, and I just make sure that I can tell where that corner is going to land and where the blade is going to come in contact with that corner. And I start off a little bit shy and I work my way up to that. So I check that that's a nice sharp edge. It's not. So I just push it over a hair, and you notice I've got a stop block set up, and once I get that final dimension, these are the tops in place, I can just flip the board and cut the other side, and then I can also cut the bottom board as well, and that just makes the process super easy, I found, and it also ensures that I end up with the same size for both the top and the bottom. I do the same thing then for the sides, and then I put it together with some tape temporarily just to see that everything fits correctly. So after jointing 2 faces, I took this over to the planer and thickness planed it. Started out at 50 millimeters, and then I took it over to the bandsaw and resawed it. When I resawed it, I had pretty bad warp, which is normal as the inside of this gets exposed. So it bent inwards towards the around the blade, so to speak. I've tried everything now. I've waited a few days for this to calm down. I put weights on top of it. I've even put water here on the inside face to help these fibers maybe expand a little bit. It's gone down a lot, but I've still got a few millimeters here of gap underneath this thing. I think it's probably about as close as it's going to get. It needs to be at 25 at the end. That's my goal, and I'm over 30 right now, so I think I've got the room to get out this bow, so I'm going to take another few millimeters off today, and then maybe even let it sit one more day to make sure that it doesn't move anymore. So it's nice and straight and flat and parallel and perpendicular, but it's only 23 millimeters. That was the final number. That's 2 millimeters less than the goal. This is going to be the legs. If that's too thin, I'll have to start over again with a fresh piece. And now I can cut those legs down to size. I'm going to taper roughly about 1/3 to 1/2 of the lower part of the leg on the 2 inside faces. So I come up with a quick jig here just to push through my table saw and create that very, very shallow taper. To do that, I'm just using some CA glue and some activator to put on some blocks, and then you'll see in just a second I also drilled a hole for a clamp because I thought running this thing through the table saw was a little bit sketchy. With the clamp though, it feels a lot more stable, and I didn't see any problems. Now I need to make the Shoji lamp frame for the top, and I've done that before in previous videos. I'll leave a link down in the description for that. Basically, I've just got the 15mm square long pieces for the small part of the frame, the upper and lower part of the frame, and I've already cut those out. I'm just using a dado stack, which is also set to exactly the same width as the parts, and then I just run those through to get the correct spacing on everything. I've got a stop block set up there to help me with that. While I've got that same dado stack set up, I'll go ahead and raise it to the same height as the smaller pieces of the lamp, so 15mm, and then I'll cut the 2 half-lap joints on the tops of the legs, and I'll do that using a temporary stop on my sled for the bottom, and that'll set the correct distance, which needs to be 100mm between those two joints. But before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and break all of the edges on these legs. The legs wrap around the case, so I'm going to actually use the case itself, which I've got set up, to mark out where those joints need to go, and I'll use again the same dado stack, which is still set up to cut that, and right at those lines, setting up some temporary blocks to make sure that all the legs get the exact same dimension. And now I can go ahead and assemble the smaller parts of the shoji frame, and you can see there I've cut a couple of little grooves, and that will hold the lamp in the middle of that'll hold a plate that'll hold the lamp in the middle of the shoji lamp. Now that I've got the groove cut out on the legs, I can go ahead and get that positioned onto the case. Check it for fit and set it at the right distance. I'll clamp that down, and then I will use the same bit that I pre-drilled the holes on the legs already, and I'll use that same bit to mark where the holes will go on the case. Then I can take the case apart completely and drill those holes in the correct location. The gap between these legs needs to be 100mm, which is also the gap on the lamp above. And so I've made a couple of spacers there that I can use to set the back leg on, and do the same process with the drill bit. I originally thought I'd do through mortise and tenons for these joints. In the end, I thought that might be too error prone, so I ended up cutting some oak dowel, and then I also cut some square pins with some holes in them, and I'll just use those. I'll put those together with the dowels, and that will create the same look, but without the stress of the potential issues coming along with mortise and tenoning this. Before I go any further, I'm going to test fit the little rabbet that I put around my lamp holder and see how that all fits, see if that's a nice tight fit. So I'll assemble the shoji frame around that lamp holder and then onto the legs and make sure that everything fits together nicely. So after a few days of work, here's where I am. I've got the case done, the outside of the case. I've got the miters in. I haven't done anything with the inside yet. I've got the pins which will attach the legs to the case, and I've got the holes marked where I need to drill the holes. I've also just yesterday received from Brusso. I found a company in Germany that carries Brusso hinges. Really nice L knife hinges, very nice high-end hinges here. That'll look really nice with the door. The door, I think I'm not going to go with solid maple, which was my original thought. I think I'm going to do a Kumiko door. And to do that, I need to relay this out and ensure that a whiskey bottle still fits in this side. So I need a little bit of time for that. The Shoji lamp frame is done, the top and the bottom, and also the sides, which are the legs. And the holder for the lamp is also ready. So I don't normally do this, but I am going to cut this video short. I think otherwise if I wait, it's going to be a really long video, so I'll break it into two. I've got the basics for the outside of the cabinet. The next video I'll focus on the walnut liner, which will go on this side of the case, and that'll hold drawers. And as well, I'll focus on the Kumiko and then the assembly. So if you want to be notified when that next video comes out, click the subscribe button and hit the bell, and you'll get a notification when my next video comes out. Thanks for watching.